Hey everybody, Happy New Year's Eve, and this is going to be the last part of Capitalism Love Story, my review of it, and my thoughts on specific ideas within the movie, and and then this one is going to be specifically focused on um, problem where the problems stem from, my solutions, and my conclusion. And so the problems will be uh, differences in the terms of free market, democracy, hierarchy, public, private, the myth of the free market, and these are all going to be brief. This probably isn't going to be a very long video because I don't have much more to say. I've kind of spent about it's been like almost a 30-minute sort of overall look at this one movie, and I only took sparse notes, so I mean I don't have too much more to say on this. So this should be under 10 minutes, but I'll get on to problems, and they stem from free market. Free market for me is a marketplace that is free from external factors like government, and that doesn't mean that it's not regulated. It's self-regulated. That's what people always mistake, that the free market is an unregulated bowl, but it's actually a self-regulating mechanism, and it has a lot of checks and balances that a lot of people like to talk about that the political system has, which and obviously does not, tramples over the Constitution constantly. And so for me, a free market is a market that is obstructed or not obstructed from external forces like government, and therefore that would lead to anarchism, because the only way government wouldn't interfere with the economic affairs of anybody, period, would be if it was abolished. So for me, free market means anarchism, not necessarily capitalism or socialism. It can be either. And I'll probably change my definitions of capitalism and socialism from time to time, because I have no strict definition of either. I think that each one has certain definitions within certain contexts, and they're just really hard words to pin down. Another hard word to pin down is democracy, and he likes to talk about representative democracy. I prefer democracy in which all people can participate. It's within a decentralized, voluntarily established community, and people are free to come and go as they please, and every individual is a sovereign person in that they are free to leave and free to exchange values. So hierarchy. He says that he's against hierarchy to some degree, but even though he wants bottom-up community organization, I've talked about this, that he's sort of contradictory in that he wants the state then to take more control, which is just a top-down centralized hierarchy. Private and public are two words that a lot of people confuse, not just neoliberals but also conservatives. And also when I say neoliberal, I mean classical liberals aren't neoliberals, because they believed in smaller government. They were basically libertarian, although libertarians and classical liberals aren't the same thing either. It's very confusing. So private, there's really nothing exactly private in today's economy, because a lot of the corporations get a lot of privilege from the government. They get a lot of advantages over small businesses and that kind of stuff. So they're really not that private. And when libertarians defend corporations, they're not really defending private associations. They're defending state advantaged associations. And then the public institutions like public schooling are just basically state controlled. And so the myth of the free market is that it exists, and it does not. Obviously, government intervenes in a lot of aspects of the market: licensing, taxes, barriers to entry. Those are just three examples. So my solution is to kind of clarify terms, and I kind of just did that just by talking about the conflation of terms. I've kind of solved why I think that he's wrong, and why Moore is wrong, and why the ideas that I have are a lot more clear and a lot more precise. And democracy means, literally, it's democracy means rule of the people. And for the rule of the people, it can't be just a small group of people. It has to be everybody, for me. So participatory and direct democracy makes more sense to me. And why to adhere to them? Well, it just makes a lot more sense that if you're going to say hierarchy is bad, then you would be an anarchist. If you think the free market is good, you'd be an anarchist. If you think democracy, rule of the people, is good, then you'd probably want, the kind of voluntary communities that I talked about that are decentralized and based on participatory democracy. And if you want to talk about private and public, if you want things to actually be commonly owned or privately owned, then you should support a system or a society where the state isn't involved in the affairs of other people. so things can actually truly be owned privately or cooperatively. And then I just kind of disagree a lot with Moore in general. I like some of his analysis, I like some of his comparisons, I like some of his metaphors, but in the end I don't think they're structured enough. I don't think that he's really thinking everything's true. He just kind of eats up the basic neoliberal propaganda that it's the free market's fault and capitalism is bad and greed is bad, and it's a system based on greed. And that's another thing to talk about, is that the Federal Reserve really had a lot to do with the greed that went on in the economy, because they lowered interest rates, they lowered this and that, and especially in the banking industry, where they had a lot to do with banks taking out loans that they didn't really have the money for, and people taking out loans that they didn't really have a lot of money for. So it kind of sends false market signals to people that, oh, well, we can buy this house even if we don't have enough money because of the low interest rates and stuff. So the Federal Reserve had a lot to do with it, and the Federal Reserve is basically one arm of the state. So the state basically caused the crash, not the free market. And as I pointed out, the free market was framed, and I posted a link about how it was framed. Jacob Spenny did in the last video. I linked to Jacob Spenny, who talked about that. So fixing up terms basically helps liberate the mind in the aspect that it's not so confusing anymore what means what and why it does and why it's best to adhere to it and why it's more practical and just leads to better results. Liberating the mind is sort of long-winded process, and it revolves around figuring out what is a free market, what is this, what is that, and why is it that, and giving good solid reasons that that can either be seen in the words themselves or through history or through how they've been used or whatever. And that helps clarify in the mind what is actually reality. And if you can see what reality is, you can better fight against the forces that you oppose. So for me, that'd be government, and these terms kind of help clarify why a market system is more efficient than a government-controlled system at any level. So again, going back to my general thoughts, I don't really recommend the movie. If you're really bored like I was and you want to sort of hash out these basic critiques, you might want to see it, but otherwise I don't really recommend it. It's more basic neoliberal propaganda about capitalism is bad, therefore the free market is bad, the free market is at fault. And so Moore really doesn't have anything new or substantive to talk about, although if you're interested in worker cooperatives, he kind of goes into that a little bit, and that was kind of cool. But he kind of also but he like romanticizes Obama, and I didn't really like that. And that was one of the biggest flaws for me, is that in the end, Moore, although he claims to be so progressive, really just wants a stricter system of regulation and control and state control. And not only is that immoral, but it's impractical. And I hope that this has clarified some ideas in terms, and hopefully I can do more of that specifically in other videos. But this was just a general outlook on one video, on one movie I mean, and so I didn't have enough time to go into the etymology or the history of all the words and stuff like that, so maybe another time. But I hope you guys enjoyed this little review and this little discussion about specific ideas, and if you have any questions, let me know. But that'll do it for now.